Are you one of those people who will get really jazzed up about something and you'll even do some research in advance to mentally prepare yourself and learn a little bit about what it's going to take to reach that goal? But then when it comes down to actually executing, you have a lot of trouble? If so, you're going to want to stay on and watch this video. I'm Pete Weintraub. I'm a permanent weight loss specialist, and this is the Weight Loss by Pete podcast. We are simulcasting this live here on YouTube, and you can listen to this at any time on any of my podcast outlets on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. So getting back, a lot of people today are all talk but no action. And that's obviously a big problem that's kind of gone on throughout society. And I've talked about this sporadically throughout my different videos and my different podcasts. A lot of people like to talk a big talk, but they don't follow it up with walking the walk. And this couldn't be even more true than in the case of losing weight and improving health. And let's face it, 7 of the top 10 leading causes of death in the United States, according to the CDC in 2017, were due to chronic conditions. And sadly, a lot of these chronic conditions are self-inflicted. Like we went on yesterday in my last video, my last podcast. Yes, that you can be genetically susceptible or pre-suscepted to certain types of chronic conditions. Heart disease, which runs pretty prevalently in my family, may run prevalently in yours. Maybe type 2 diabetes. Maybe a lot of people in your family are overweight or obese. The list goes on. But let's face it, guys, unfortunately, we do this to ourselves. And often in a family dynamic, whether it be the immediate family or it's the extended family even, we acquire bad lifestyle habits. We eat a lot of junk together. We drink a lot of booze together. We're very sedentary together. We don't get a lot of sleep together. And as a result, because we've acquired these poor lifestyle habits, maybe from our parents, maybe again from our immediate and extended family members, this dynamics tend to stay within the family unit, and we all suffer from a lot of the same issues. And other statistics to throw at you: over 2/3 of the U.S. population is overweight, with over 2/3 of that 2/3 being obese. This is obviously not good. And obesity is something that more often than not, like 99.9% of cases, people do to themselves. There are people who do have thyroid issues. Fortunately, some of those can be corrected through bettering your nutrition, exercising regularly, and instilling healthy lifestyle habits. So what I want to do with you today is I want to go over how you can go from being inept to taking action. Because let's face it, one of the things that a lot of us will do, whether it's about starting this weight loss journey, whether it's about improving your health, or whether it's something completely different, is, like I said, we'll get really jazzed up. Okay, we're making the change, and we're either, let's say it's a Friday and we've come to this epiphany and we've done a little bit of research and we have a good understanding of what we need to do to accomplish the goal at hand. We'll say, okay, it's Friday, the weekend's coming up, we'll have one last hurrah, we'll go out, we'll get fucked up, we'll eat a lot of shitty food, we won't get a lot of sleep, but come Monday, we're on the straight and narrow, and we're not messing around. And what happens? On Monday, life throws us a curveball, and then we make excuses, and we never start the journey again until something happens. Maybe your significant other leaves you because he or she thinks that you're not taking care of yourself, that you're too overweight. Maybe they were attracted to someone else, whatever, and that lights a fire under your butt. That is, of course, until, again, it comes time to get started. Maybe you go to the doctor, you have your bloods taken, and you have a health scare, and you realize, oh, I really need to make a change. And you decide, okay, I'm going to start tomorrow. You find out on a certain day, and I'm going to start tomorrow. You'll do your preliminary research, you'll be jazzed up. Then tomorrow happens, and again, life will throw you a curveball. And guys, life's cyclical. Life is unpredictable. The conditions are never going to be met. And I just sent out an email to my list and my blog and everything about this very thing, that the stars have to align and the age of Aquarius has to begin in order to reach your goals. And it's never going to happen. Life isn't perfect. Conditions are rarely, if ever, perfect. It's never a perfect time to start any endeavor, especially when it comes to bettering ourselves. And another thing to consider too, guys, is even though, yes, intuitively, we know that eating like crap, getting little to no sleep every night, and being sedentary, not moving on, exercising on a regular basis, this is not conducive to bettering our health or to losing weight and keeping it off or making a real change. But you know what? It's easier to buy junk food. It's cheaper. It shoots off all the dopamine releases and all the chemical releases we want in our brains. It's so much easier to sit on a couch, eat bonbons, and watch Netflix than it is to get up, whether it's going to a gym, going for a jog outside, whatever the case may be. It's a lot easier to do that. It's a lot easier to order takeout that's shitty food, whether it's pizza or Chinese food or whatever, than it is to cook a home-cooked meal. And in fact, in the description below, I have a link to my healthy recipe book, 72 recipes spanning breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, appetizers, and desserts. You can get that as well as my food guide by going to the link down below. The food guide reviews nutrition in greater detail so you can get an understanding of what you need to do. It's in 3 phases. So you start in phase 1, you clean some stuff up. Once you got that down, you graduate to phase 2, and then phase 3, where we get into some more advanced stuff like macronutrient counting and things of that nature. So check that out in the description below. But getting back, we need to get our ducks in a row. And it's a lot easier, like I said, to stay the status quo, even though we know it's not best for us, even though we know it's not good for us, than it is to start making positive changes to push us in a healthier, trimmer direction. So I'm going to share something with you right now on the screen, and this is called the permanent weight loss pyramid. You've probably seen this if you watched past videos of mine or you've subscribed to my email list or what have you. So here it is right here. So much like the food pyramid, which is a travesty in and of itself, 60 plus years of misinforming Americans, and there are similar food pyramids throughout the world on what is best to eat if you want to be healthy, if you want to be fit and in shape. Obviously, it's not true. Luckily, it's starting to be disproven, and a lot of people who got a lot of flack initially for their claims against the food pyramid are now coming to prominence, and people are starting to wake up a little bit. But I have the permanent weight loss pyramid here in front of you if you're watching. If you're listening, no worries. I'm going to describe everything that this entails, all right? So we start off at the base. The base, or the bottom, is the most crucially important component. If you don't have the base, you don't have anything, all right? And the most important component is mindset. You have to get your mind right. And this is kind of what we went over yesterday in regards to not letting vanity or stupid kind of primitive motivators be your calling card for this type of stuff. So I talked to you yesterday about how vanity is not what you want to turn to if that's going to be your motivation. And I use the example of summer coming up in a lot of parts of the world, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, and how it's going to get warmer soon. And we're going to be going on a beach and wearing clothing that reveals more skin, and that motivates people to get trimmed for a quarter of the year. But there's 75% else of the year. And even if we're doing some active, healthy things for half the year, there's that other half where we're neglecting our nutrition. We go back into bad sleep habits, and we just decide to sit on the couch and not move again until the following spring. It's a vicious cycle. We always gain all the weight back and then some in the winter. And as a result, year after year, when you want to trim up for summer, it gets harder. You have to find your real motivation. So like we went over yesterday, I won't go into great detail. If you want, watch the video that's in the card above. If you're watching this live on YouTube or later at a later date on YouTube. But basically, think about things like this. You want to improve your daily functionality. Maybe you're finding it's harder and harder for you to bend over and pick something up off the floor, or to tie your shoes, or to walk up a flight of stairs. Like little stupid basic things are getting more difficult for you. Or you may even find sometimes you got to jog, maybe you got to catch a train or a bus to go to work, and you're finding you're getting really out of breath. Whereas in the past, even if it was just a few months ago, you didn't really get out of breath. It wasn't that big a deal for you. These types of things should be eye-openers for you. You want to maintain your daily functionality for as long as you can. You don't want to be one of those senior citizens sitting in an assisted living facility, shitting their pants and being completely reliant on the nurses and the staff at these places. You want to maintain your independence long into your life. So leading a sedentary lifestyle where you're fueling your body with shit is not the answer. Maybe you're a parent and you have kids, and you may have young kids. You got to run around with them, and it's not just chauffeuring them to sports practices and music lessons and tutoring and things like that. They're going to want to run around and play with you. They're going to want you to pick them up and spin them around and do all those things that kids want you to do with them. If you can't physically perform that because you're so deconditioned and out of shape, that's an issue. You may even be a grandparent, so maybe you were in respectable enough shape for your actual sons and daughters, but you're not there for your grandkids. That's an issue. Don't you want to be there for your grandkids? You may not see very, very far into your grandkids' lives, depending on how old you are, but for as long as you can be, don't you want to be there for them like you were there for your kids? Don't you want to be able to play with them when you see them and keep up with them and do all those things? You don't want to let age be an excuse for you falling further and further down the rabbit hole of physical ineptitude. You want to stay on point. Maybe you're finding you have brain fog all the time, and it could be a combination of your poor lifestyle habits, of not getting any regular exercise, so poor circulation throughout your body because you're sedentary, lack of sleep, obviously that impairs cognition, and poor nutrition, which will also impair cognition. So you want to be able to think more clearly. Maybe you have crazy, drastic mood swings. Maybe you struggle with depression and anxiety. I know I did when I was overweight. And when I righted the ship with my nutrition, when I exercise more regularly, exercise releases dopamine in your brain, kind of like eating sugar and certain types of foods do. And then I was getting more better quality sleep. That all adds up. I realized I'm thinking more rationally, more logically, more clearly, and things that used to drive me up a wall or really depress me in the past no longer are. There's so many reasons to get your mind behind this, and those are just a few examples, but those are some very common examples that I see, and those are things that you need to think about. Get your mind right around your real whys. Don't do it to look good on a beach, because that's bullshit. As you get older, maybe if you settle down with someone and you have children and all that, you're not going to care so much about what you look like. That's a shitty motivator, and you don't want to get to a point where you can't be physically intimate with your partner, where you can't run around and have fun with your kids because you're too fat and out of shape to do so. So figure out what your whys are, harness them, and every time you feel like you're going to have a weak moment where you're going to fall completely off the horse, come back to that. And I can guarantee you that'll help you out a lot, all right? So going back to the permanent weight loss pyramid, right? So there are multiple levels. So the base was mindset. The next thing is going to be nutrition. All right. So I talked a little bit about this just now, but with nutrition, guys, this is the most important physical aspect of this journey. So once your mind's on, once you really have your why, and you're not just motivated in the moment or for a few days until the time of awakening comes and you actually have to execute on what you're looking to accomplish. Next up, we need to find your nutrition. Nutrition, very succinctly, like I said, I have that link down below to my food guide and healthy recipe book. You download those two things, you're going to be very well off nutritionally. You're going to be well ahead of like 95% at least of the population. So download those. Usually I sell them for $50 or $25 a piece. Today you can get them for $13.99. Again, in the link below, weightlossbypete.com/food guide recipes. But getting back, nutrition can succinctly be summed up into 2 sentences. And you can apply these 2 sentences to any situation where you're going to be ingesting food or drinks, all right? Eat meats. Meats, what is meat? If you don't know what meat is, turn this video off and really reflect on some things in your life. Meats, vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, all right? So stay away from potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, corn, and certain types of beans. Now, there are things like the glycemic load that you want to look into. And if the glycemic load of a certain vegetable or even a fruit is over a 10 on the glycemic load scale, that means you don't really want to be ingesting that. So you can do a simple Google search, glycemic load of a potato, for example. You'll see it's over 10, pretty high over 10. Therefore, you don't want to eat it, and so on. And usually, the greener, the better. That's a very good, simple way of looking at it. So eat meats, non-starchy vegetables, raw nuts and seeds. There's a lot of roasted nuts and seeds out there. Unfortunately, most nuts and seeds are roasted in heated vegetable oil. Vegetable oil, even when it's processed and it's not supposed to go over a certain temperature, can easily go over a certain temperature. And when it goes over this very low, I mean, it's a high temperature for us, it'll burn us, but for roasting or anything or for heating, it's really not that high. I believe it's like 135 or 145 degrees Fahrenheit. It hydrogenates, and that oil then becomes trans fat. Trans fat's been linked to heart disease, various forms of cancer. It's not something you want to ingest. It's been outlawed here in the United States, but you'll see food studies come out here and there with processed foods that still use heated vegetable oils. Sometimes trans fat is still present in a lot of processed foods. Same is true in nuts and seeds, which is why you want to have them raw. Also, salted nuts and seeds. Now, the debate on salt is leaning in the direction of it doesn't lead to hypertension or high blood pressure or anything like that unless you're already hypertensive or have high blood pressure. Then salt can affect those levels in a negative direction. If you're not and you want to minimize your risk, don't worry too much about salt, but I would still recommend getting raw nuts and seeds, all right? And tree nuts too. A distinguishment I want to make here is that peanuts, which are very common, you can even get them at a baseball game, are not actually tree nuts. They're legumes, they're beans, they're grown out of the ground. And while they are high in healthy fat, like a lot of tree nuts and seeds are, they are also high in some starch, which is not really conducive. It metabolizes in your body differently than a tree nut does. So be cognizant of that, all right? So meats, non-starchy vegetables, raw nuts and seeds, low glycemic fruit. So I talked about glycemic load before. You can look that up, glycemic load of an apple, banana, whatever. Look it up. And again, if it's 10 or less, it's good. If it's over 10, 11 or above, you don't want to ingest it. Also, something to consider is the glycemic index. Basically, the glycemic index is a scale from 0 to 100. 0 meaning all that food is no sugar, and 100 meaning all it is sugar. And fruits, vegetables, everything falls various points along the spectrum. If it's 0 to 49 on the glycemic index, it's good. If it's 50 or above, not so good. You can follow that up with glycemic load. Sometimes you're going to just have an option of all high glycemic index fruits. So you then look at the glycemic load. If it's 10 or less, that's okay. And one thing to consider too is that if a food has a high glycemic load, it always has a high glycemic index. But the inverse is not true. If the food has a high glycemic index, it can have a low glycemic load, and thus, while not the most ideal type of food, it can be something that you can turn to in the place of a food that has both a high glycemic index and a high glycemic load. All right, so meats, non-starchy vegetables, raw nuts and seeds, low glycemic fruit, half a cup or less of starch, all right, and non-grain-based starch. So you don't want to have grain-based starch. So that means no pasta, no bread, no rice. And that's when you can turn to those starchy vegetables. But again, half a cup or less in any meal, that's not a lot. So you really want to minimize it, and you want to time it around times within an hour after you exercise so that you can replenish what's called your muscle glycogen storage, basically the energy in your muscles, so that they can then repair themselves at a better rate with some healthy protein and fat, which would be found primarily in the meats that you're eating. And then no added sugar is the last part of that sentence. So no added sugar meaning no processed foods. All the sugar you're getting is in the fruits and vegetables that you're ingesting. So review that sentence one more time. Meats, non-starchy vegetables, raw nuts and seeds, low glycemic fruit, half a cup or less of starch, no added sugar. 6 parts to that. Memorize that sentence. It sounds like a lot now, but it's written down in that food guide. So again, for $13.99 down below, you can get that in my healthy recipe book. Memorize that sentence and apply it to every nutritional situation. I don't care if you're prepping a meal at home, you're ordering takeout, or you're eating at a restaurant. You apply that to every nutritional situation you encounter, you're going to be fine. And then also, eat only when hungry. So this whole regimented schedule of we have to have breakfast within an hour of waking, and then a mid-morning snack, then lunch, then a mid-afternoon snack, then dinner, and then maybe a snack before bed. You don't have to do that. You don't have to eat every few hours. That keeps your metabolism going, and that's for grazers. Grazers are people who are in a state of glucosis. Their bodies are reliant on glucose, carbohydrate, which they ingest from a high-carb diet, which is recommended in the food pyramid, which I trashed earlier on in this video, in this podcast. So you want to make sure that you eat only when hungry. So that's why I recommend intermittent fasting to a lot of people. And intermittent fasting basically is you eat only within an 8-hour window every day, to keep it simple, from 12 to 8 p.m. You can move it up earlier, you can move it back later. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about eating too close to bed. But basically what this does is the 16 hours of not eating enables your body to go through a process of autophagy, which is a fancy way of saying your cells kind of destroy the bad cells and they replace them with good ones, healthy ones. And that way you can improve your health simultaneously as you're trimming up and you're losing weight. Also has great benefit to reducing your water weight, making you have that drier look. So especially as you get leaner and leaner, you're really going to like what you see. All right. So that is nutrition in a nutshell. The next thing up on the permanent weight loss pyramid is sleep. And it's funny because a lot of people would think, okay, I've heard abs are made in the kitchen, so maybe nutrition is more important than fitness, but how the hell is sleep? I heard this from Chris Kresser, who is very well renowned. He's a naturopathic doctor, I believe, and researcher. And I heard about him on the Joe Rogan podcast a while back. And sleep is vitally important because when you sleep, your body is repairing itself and it's enabling your hormone levels to function well. And he used this example. I looked into this. It's true, and it's crazy. On just one night of low quality and low quantity sleep, so you're not getting a lot of sleep, and you're not getting good quality sleep on, to boot. You wake up and you're almost in like a pre-diabetic state. It's crazy. So your blood sugar levels are all messed up, which means your hormone levels are all messed up. It means that you're not thinking clearly. You're not functioning optimally. You're going to crave sugar-laden and processed garbage because it's a quick pick-me-up. That's the one benefit to those things. But unfortunately, there's no good that comes of it afterwards. It also lowers your metabolism. No good comes from low-quality sleep. And unfortunately, here in Western civilization, and even the United States in general, where a lot of us work hard, especially here in New York, it's hustle bustle 24/7, which is why I want to leave. That's a whole other discussion. It's crazy how much it affects you. And I always had trouble with sleep. So if I had to compare myself in the permanent weight loss pyramid, even to this day, sleep is by far the toughest thing for me. It really is. There are times, and obviously I run my own business and service. It can be tough, but it's important to prioritize sleep. So be in bed half an hour before you want your sleep cycle to start. And your sleep cycle should be comprised of one of two durations of sleeping. You want to get either 7.5 hours or 9 hours. You want to sleep in 90-minute intervals. And if you're napping, you want to either have your long nap should be 90 minutes or 3 hours tops. Other than that, after that, you should just go to sleep at that point if you're that tired and you have that much time on your hands. But outside of that, you want to sleep in 90-minute intervals. And some people, a very small subset of the population, can function well on 6. But again, 90 minutes is the equivalent of 1 REM cycle. So you want to sleep within that. They have some great sleep apps that are free that you can use on your smartphone. If you have a fitness watch like I do here with the Apple Watch, they have some great sleep programs that will actually wake you up at the ideal time in your REM cycle. So you can type into it that you're planning to get 7.5 hours of sleep, and it may wake you up 45 minutes before you expected to be up, or it may wake you up a little bit later, but it wakes you up at the perfect time so that you're waking up at an ideal time. You got consistent quality sleep, and that's a good tool to add to your disposal. All right. And then the last thing, obviously, which a lot of people turn to first, mistakenly, is fitness. So fitness-wise, a lot of people, they're looking for the perfect fitness methodology. CrossFit was really big with this. I'm actually CrossFit certified a while back. Yoga feels that the same way about themselves. Pretty much every fitness methodology feels that it's the best way to go. None of them are the best way to go. The best way to go is what works for you. What's going to keep you motivated? What's going to keep you moving? So I say to people when they're focusing on fitness, pick 3 types of fitness that you enjoy. So for me, I like interval training. Why do I like it? It's fast, it's efficient. The way that I do it is functional. I feel like I accomplished something, and I maximize my time. I'm done in 20 to 30 minutes. I move on with my day. My clients love it too because, like myself and like you, I'm sure, they're all really busy people. They either have demanding jobs, or they're parents and they got young kids and they got to be on call for them, or they're business owners like myself. They don't have time to be in the gym for 2 or 3 hours. So they like getting the same benefits of a 2 to 3 hour workout in a much shorter duration of time. The other thing that I like to do is I like to do yoga. It helps me recover from my interval training workouts. And my third favorite thing, which is playing softball in recreational leagues. I play in a slow pitch softball league with juice bats, juice balls. I play left field, predominantly right-handed hitters. If you know anything about baseball or softball, that means I get a lot of action. I get a lot of sprinting. I'm also a damn good hitter. I get on base 7 or 8 times out of 10, which means I do a lot of running while I'm there. So I get my sprints in. It's almost like interval training, but it's a fun form of interval training. But you don't have to do those things. Do what works for you. If you like to run, start running again. If you like to bike, if you like to hike, if you like to swim, whatever works for you, do more of that. And you pick 3 things and pick something you can do indoors, pick something outdoors, pick something kind of neutral. And if you're able to do that, you're going to be very well off. And now this is a lot of information. So this may be overwhelming to you. So how do you pick what you should do? Simple. We got to start at the base of the pyramid. So start with your mindset. Again, figure out your true whys. Don't do it because summer's coming. Do it because whatever. Some of the things I went over before. You rewind the podcast or video if you need to figure out what that is. Find your whys. Next up, once you have your whys and you feel, okay, this time it's different, I'm motivated. Focus just on nutrition. Don't change sleep or fitness just yet. Focus first on nutrition. Memorize those 2 sentences. Eat meats, non-starchy vegetables, raw nuts and seeds, low glycemic fruit, half a cup or less of non-grain-based starch, no added sugar. Eat only when hungry, just to satisfy, not to stuff your face. Apply that to every nutritional situation you encounter, and I promise you, you'll be very well off. Then, sleep. 7.5 or 9 hours of sleep a night. Be in bed half an hour before that sleep window starts. If you want, use a sleep app that will wake you up at the appropriate time. And then lastly, fitness. Pick 3 types of fitness you enjoy. One indoors, one outdoors, one that can be done either or. Something maybe that's competitive or fun for you, and go about it that way. So that way you stay motivated and you keep moving. If you're able to do that, guys, I promise you that inside of 3 months, maybe even less, you will have changed and just made simple tweaks to your lifestyle with all of these different things, and you'll be well on your way to reaching your health and weight loss goals. All right, so that's it for today. So if you like this video, you like this podcast, do me a favor. I do one of these Monday through Friday. Please subscribe to my channel, as well as leave a review. I'd love to hear your reviews and what you think of what I have to say and how it's helped you potentially. Or if you don't like it, what can I do better? I'm always looking for feedback, and I'd love to hear from you. So subscribe, leave a comment or a review on the video or on the podcast. Also, like I said before, if you want more help with nutrition, my food guide recipe book is on sale now. Instead of $50 for the 2, it's $13.99 for the 2. Not going to stay that way for very long, so get it now by going to the link in the comments below. And lastly, if you want, I have a free report. So if you're not ready to, you don't want to spend any money, you just want to learn a little bit more about how I can help you or how I've lost 100 pounds, because that's how I got into this, guys. I lost 100 pounds from my heaviest to where I am now, and it wasn't easy. I didn't have a mentor or a coach like myself for myself, so I had to do all the research, all the experimentation, all the certifications on my own, figuring out what worked for me and figuring out a simple means of changing the lifestyles of my clients before I could really, really take this out into the open. So it's called the 5 Strategy Report. So it's for free. You just go in there, tell me where to send it with your email address, and you'll get your free copy of the 5 strategies that I used to lose 100 pounds. And then if you're ready after that, all you got to do is click the link at the end of the report. It'll forward you to my strategy call page, and you set a date and time that works well for you. We'll hop on the strategy call. You'll be prompted to fill out a health questionnaire in advance. So that way I have a very good understanding of your goals, your needs, your athletic, injury, and medical history. So that way I can recommend the best program for you. All right. So thanks again so much for watching and listening, guys. This is Pete Weintraub, permanent weight loss specialist. I'm signing off. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.